So this is the leftover half of my sub that I got at Salvatores, since for St. Patrick's Day it was a Thursday, which meant it was their $10 sub special. This is one half of the $10 sub. Dad ended up getting a cheesesteak. I got an assorted Italian with mayo and honey mustard. If for some reason it came with a pickle. I think that's technically called a pickle spear. It also came with a drink, and this is what both me and Dad picked as our drink. We were at Salvatore's from 5 to roughly 7 p.m. And for much of that time period, I felt pretty exhausted because we also ate considerably earlier and did some drinking since it was St. Patrick's Day. In particular, I think it was starting at around noon that we first went to the California Brew House for the first time in a pretty long time. The owner of the place, who I didn't recognize as the owner of the place until Dad told me so, when we got in the car to go to Bernard's Crossing, which is a railway restaurant. We had the bottle of Harp, which was somewhat bitter, at the California Brew House. While we stayed there, there was a man who was denied service. And I didn't really mind getting either the Reuben there or at Bernard's Crossing, and I said as much, but we ended up going to Bernard's Crossing because Dad wanted to get the Reuben at Bernard's Crossing rather than California Brew House. Initially because apparently at the California Brew House he wouldn't know who would be cooking our Reubens. As for the owner, it seems that people have a tendency to recognize my face more than I have a tendency to recognize other people. Unless for some reason you really make an impression on me like Mr. Herbert did. And that one teacher of mine who worked at Campane. The thing that sticks out most to me about Bernard's Crossing is their offering of deviled eggs. In this case, it's 3 for $1, which I think is a pretty good deal to me. Dad got an initial order of 6 for $2, with both of us getting a Guinness, and I believe with the Guinnesses we had our Reuben sandwiches. The fryer was broken, so instead of fries, which are called chips in the UK, we got potato chips, which are called crisps in the UK, with our Reubens. The potato chips were pretty good. I got this city expansion through completing province encounters right before Dad and I left for our big daily excursions for St. Patrick's Day. I recall first waking up sometime between 3 and 4 in the morning. And I worked to finish the Leprechaun Styrofoam drawing for my dad, finishing it at 8:23 a.m. Dad wanted to leave by 10, so around 9 I started getting ready, and I'm pretty sure we met the goal of leaving by 10. This is tasty. Just like the first half was. Dad said as much that my sub at Salvatores looked great. I believe we initially planned to get their haircuts first. In my case, mine was a buzz cut. Dad decided he wanted to go to his old barber. But there were people, so we instead did some driving practice in the form of some loops around his route. There were points in which I was a little nervous, as comes naturally. But I stayed calm when a car approached from the other lane. And Dad said I did better with turning. I'm remembering to try and brake, ease on the brake before a turn, and ease on the gas during a turn. I think this driving practice lasted for somewhere between half an hour and an hour. And when we went back to the place, there were still people. So Dad decided to get money out. And then when we went back again, the place, I think, still had a person. But there were less people, I think. Just one person that time. So we parked and then went inside the barber shop. Dad said that barber didn't do a very good job, but I said a 2 buzz cut, and he buzzed my hair. The shave wasn't as close as I wanted, but I didn't have the heart to give him extra work. Essentially. After that, we went to briefly visit Dad's parents, during which Aunt Megan was there. And we did some talking. I think it was at some point during some point around the driving lessons. I believe it was while I was waiting for my turn for my buzz cut, I went after Dad, who went after the man, that I made the U-Cut project video for yesterday's my dinner video by combining the raw video and photos together. It was around these sort of times, from the barber shop and the visit of Dad's parents, that I thought about how I would draw a T-Rex. I believe it was Aunt Megan who gave me the idea of drawing Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. And because I think, if I recall correctly, one of her cousins likes the Buffalo Bills. It was after visiting Dad's parents that we went to the California Brew House and then to Bernard's Crossing. After the Rubens, Dad and I got another round of beers for both him and I. This time it was some kind of red Irish Scotch ale. And by request, Dad got it with another 3 deviled eggs. I ended up having a total of 5 deviled eggs at Bernard's Crossing. Though at Bernard's Crossing, we briefly went to the outside smokers area. I guess maybe it was to chit-chat briefly or something. Yeah, I don't really like being in smokers areas. I pulled that green coat, which I believe I started wearing at the latest, the California Brew House mark. Before that, I wore the coat I primarily wore throughout winter. Yeah, but then Dad brought the green coat from his closet, since you're supposed to wear green for St. Patrick's Day. And I swapped the winter coat for the green coat. Except it isn't really a coat, it's more like some kind of thick shirt. And for the shirt I wore under both the winter coat and the green coat, meaning the shirt I wore under either coat, it was this incredibly thin Mickey Mouse themed shirt, which was so thin and flimsy that I had to be very careful with it because I was afraid of tearing it. That shirt was also from Dad's closet. And I chose that shirt over other shirts because that was the lightest shirt Dad had at his disposal, pretty much. Which ended up being a pretty good decision. It ended up being unexpectedly warm, even for a day that nears spring. It's technically not spring yet, but we are close to it. It ended up being in, I think, the low 70s today, a pretty warm day. I ended up getting that car oven feeling to an extent. In my own words, it felt like summer. Certainly felt like it. I think for every time we went to another point throughout our journeys, we had the windows partially open and I could feel the breeze through my now shaved head. The side quests have pretty much remained the same since I haven't completed them. I believe I started the upgrades, the building upgrades that are currently completed right before we left for Salvatores, since after we ate at Bernard's Crossing, we went back home, staying there between, I believe, 2:30 p.m. and about 5 p.m. I think it was around 5 p.m. I believe we left again around 4:30 p.m. And at 5 p.m. was when we arrived at Salvatores, where for my first drink there, I got the drink special called the Shamrock. Though prior to being reminded of the correct name, I misremembered it as the Leprechaun. Which is understandable since both of those things are green, although a Shamrock tends to be all green, while a Leprechaun isn't. And Shamrock is just a term they have for a 4-leaf clover. Sometime after getting the Shamrock, by which time there's still plenty left since I drank at it slowly, Dad got fried dough for us. And while eating, of which I got the powdered sugar and cinnamon all over the green coat. And the powder had to be wiped off with napkins. And then because they use this sort of paper for the fried dough, which is pretty flimsy, it moved as I tried to move one piece of the fried dough into the powdered sugar on the paper, and I ended up getting powdered sugar on the green coat again. And I had to wipe it off with napkins again. And then after, right before I finished the Shamrock Cocktail, which, as it turns out, had 2 cherries within it, by that point, melting ice had given it a more watery taste. Dad got me a beer, and I got the beer around the same time as we got our subs. Actually, wait, no. I got the beer way before I got the sub. And I waited for the sub to come out because I wanted to take a picture of my beer and my sub together for this video. For much of my time at Salvatores, unlike at other places, I felt bored and tired. And maybe I was just tired. That inter-visit period from about 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. ended up being a not-so-productive period. I think the only thing I did during that time was to work on the 99 Dan Hamming episode by splitting the curtain for this new scene I'm working on involving the trio, which I plan on putting at the very beginning of the episode. Splitting the curtain that way it'll seem more accessible. I did this through using a unlocked adjustment of a prop. Unlocked meaning that if you change the height of a prop, the width won't change, and vice versa. You do this by holding the shift key within Vion Studio when you click on a prop. And then I Control V'd the curtain prop, and then I first Control C'd, then Control V'd the curtain prop. Yeah, I'm currently focusing on how to make the new curtains look just right. Essentially, I want the area inside each loop to have just one color. Otherwise, I don't think it'll look like the loops are connected, so to speak. While at Salvatore's, there was a resurgence in me playing the Beat the Boss apps. I first tried Beat the Boss 3. I'm grateful that my phone remembered my progress on both the Beat the Boss 3 and the Beat the Boss 4 app, considering I had had those both on my phone for over a year without ever playing them. but I only had a one gun weapon unlocked on Beat the Boss 3, and they didn't have ads anymore, so it wasn't possible to get the collectibles you needed in order to get some of the gun weapons. So after about 5 to 15 minutes, I didn't really consider it worthwhile to continue with Beat the Boss 3, and so I moved on to Beat the Boss 4. For which I had a whole lot more progress. And I already had most of the gun weapons unlocked on Beat the Boss 4. And for me, it just became a matter of completing all of the quests in case I unlock something for that, but there were about 960 quests, and I had completed less than 100. Both prior to the resurgence and after I stopped playing. When we went to leave Salvatores around 7:30 p.m. I think it was around 7:15, 7:30 p.m. that we picked out these root beers for our drink to go with the subs and drove home. And when we got home, I think we both ended up falling asleep. At some point. It was after we got home from Bernard's Crossing, meaning during that inter-visit between coming back home from Bernard's Crossing and going to Salvatore's, that Dad opened up all the windows because, again, it was a unusually warm day for a near spring day, for technically a winter day. And he opened the window in the spare room, which is this room right here. He opened it an unthinkable amount. Had it been a typical snowy day, here during the winter, because on typical winter days here, even opening it more than a sliver would result in this room within half an hour becoming uncomfortably cold. Meaning you would end up feeling a little uncomfortable with the cold at least. I believe Dad has since closed most of the windows back, but he ended up missing mine. It feels perfectly fine and comfortable in here. While I was at Salvatores, I ended up lightly sweating throughout my time at Salvatores. And that wasn't the case for any other place I ended up being. Not even Dad's car, as generally whenever I got in the car, the AC and then the windows and their accompanying breeze through the start of the driving would all occur within 2 minutes. And not really enough time to break out into a sweat on a day that's in the 70s. And not only was today in the 70s, but it was also pretty sunny. As Sean at least one point put it, today was an excellent day to go out for a walk. And at another point, to be a mailman, I think. It was also during the inter-visit period that Dad made some coffee. Although we ended up leaving for Salvatore's during a full, what would be my second cup out of the pot. I still haven't quite finished that cup, but it's still good because coffee is essentially coffee beans mixed into water, essentially. I think it's ground up coffee beans, something like that. That's what I think coffee is. I had 1 cup out of the pot, plain, just like that one. Then I prepared a second cup and didn't really get to have any of that cup before we went to leave for Salvatore's. I think we left around 4:30 p.m., which is why I think I said we initially got to Salvatore's at around 5 p.m. Even though we're fairly close to Salvatore's,